So what I will do is I'll be putting a link into the meeting chat, which will take you to a website called Mentimeter. And then once you're there, it will ask you a question. And that question is, what things can you do in your home to improve energy efficiency and reduce your carbon footprint? So if you head to the meeting chat now, that should take you directly to that website. You can also join by heading to menti.com, so that's menti.com, and entering the code 6131 0175. So I'll put that into the chat as well. So lots of different ways to join. And what I'll do in a second is bring that word cloud up onto the screen so we can see what you're putting in live. So yeah, please do head to the chat and click on that link to take part. So bear with me 1 second, I'll get that.
Sorry, have we got to log in a different way?
No, sorry, this is just for the interactive word cloud activity. So you're all fine on Zoom. So if you just click on the link that's in the meeting chat to take part in the word cloud and add to it, or you can pop ideas into the chat as well and we can pick up on it there. The question is, what things can you do in your home to improve energy efficiency and reduce your carbon footprint?
It sounds stupid. If we just want to watch and not necessarily answer,
that's fine.
We can do that. Just because it's my dad who's sitting here and I'm not going to be sitting with him and he won't be able to go to the chat and stuff back.
Yeah, that's no problem at all. Yeah, no problem. So I've just shared on my screen. You should be able to see that now, the word cloud coming up live. So hopefully you can see that. So you can see what people are adding. Perfect. That's great. So what kinds of things have we got coming through? So insulation is a big one, and the more times people enter a word, it will come up bigger. So that's obviously a popular one. We've got new boiler up there, heat pump. Yeah, that's a good one, and we'll cover things like that and measures like that in today's session. Replacing gas boiler. Yep, brilliant. Thermostat, keeping an eye on that. That's a good one. Heating controls as well. Drawer curtains in the evening. Yeah, that's a good one. Draft proofing. So there's a mixture of smaller quick wins that you can make on there and then bigger structural changes that you can make in your home. And we'll cover some of those today. Solar panels. Yep. LED bulbs. That's a good one. Okay. I think that's stopped moving now. So just to give us a few ideas of things that we can all do to make a difference in our homes and the best things. Insulating roofs as well. Yep. Good one. And we'll cover some more of the quick wins and top tips that you can do in your home throughout the presentation and at the end as well. Okay. Brilliant. That's really helpful to see, and hopefully that's a nice way to kick off the event, to get us all thinking. So I'll stop sharing that now. And I can see in the chat that, yeah, Alison's put add extra insulation. Yeah, absolutely. And insulating existing cavity walls. Yeah, perfect. Okay. Thanks everyone for your contributions there. So we will now move on to the presentation on the Green Homes Grant by my colleague, Andrew. So over to you, Andrew.
Thank you very much, Amy. I'm just going to get up my presentation and share my screen. So just a moment. It always takes a short while to get up on screen.
Just a reminder while Andrew's doing that, if you have any questions throughout Andrew's presentation, just pop them into the chat, or we'll pick up on them at the Q&A session at the end.
Can you see that now, Amy?
I can. It just needs to be in. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, all good.
Brilliant. Fantastic. So my name's Andrew Hagger and I am Policy and Review Manager at Richmond Council. And so I lead on our climate change work, and I'm going to talk to you today about Green Homes Grant. So what is Green Homes Grant? So the Green Homes Grant is funding that we've secured as a local authority from central government, and it's funding to support the retrofit of homes to improve energy efficiency and install low carbon heating for, and we've got funding for up to 120 homes across the borough. So I'm going to go into the details in a little bit, but essentially this scheme is to help with the retrofit of homes, and it's aimed at those that have lower incomes and poor energy efficiency of their properties at the moment. So this is for people who have an income of under £30,000 or under £20,000 once you take away housing costs, and for properties that have an EPC rating of D, E, F or G, and those are the lowest energy efficiency ratings for properties. And if you're eligible for funding, then you'll be able to join the scheme, and you can have improvements made to your home for up to £10,000 if you're an occupier, and things that can be installed include insulation, solar panels, heat pumps potentially, building controls, heating controls, things like that. So this is a way to help make your home more energy efficient and also reduce your heating bills. And we'll go into all this in a bit more detail now. So why should you be interested? Well, you can get up to £10,000 worth of improvements for your home if you meet the criteria, and you don't have to pay anything if you're an owner occupier. So £10,000 is a rough guide. It might be a bit under depending on sort of the suitable measures. We can also go a little bit over if your property requires a bit more work to it as well. So that's the rough guideline. It's around about £10,000 is what we get. So it's not kind of every property is allocated £10,000 exactly. There's some flexibility around that. And so the improvements that can be made to your home will make the home warmer and also reduce your energy bills. And given sort of increases in energy prices at the moment, that I imagine would be quite welcome for a lot of people. You can also potentially have low carbon heating solutions installed, and that includes heat pumps and solar thermal. And so using less energy can help reduce your carbon emissions as well as reducing your bills. And it's one of the reasons we're doing this. It is part of our climate change work. So less energy means lower carbon, which improves our carbon footprint and reduces the impact on the environment and helps to reduce climate change, as well as obviously helping yourselves have much warmer houses and lower fuel bills. So who's eligible? So I talked a bit about this, but I'll go into a bit more detail. So it's crucial to remember that the Green Homes Grant is not open to all and is targeted at those who are most in need and most in need of affordable warmth. So the scheme is targeted at those who could be struggling to pay their energy bills due to having low incomes, or because they've got less energy efficient homes, and that's sort of the target for this funding for the grant scheme. So the property must have an EPC rating of D, E, F or G. So the EPC rating is Energy Performance Certificate, and so that's an assessment of how energy efficient your home is. If you've moved recently or if you rent your property, then chances are you'll probably have an EPC. If you haven't moved in over 10 years, then there's a good chance you don't have an EPC, but don't worry about it. So if you want to find out your EPC, you can find it from, there's a government website where there's a register of all EPCs and you can very quickly find it. Amy, if you could put a link in the chat at some point during the presentation, that'd be fantastic. You need to go in there, type in your postcode, find out. If you don't know what your EPC is, don't worry, you can still apply. And if you're struggling to find it, then what you could do is contact one of us, and we've got access to sort of modelling software that looks at all the houses in the borough and gives an estimate of the EPC rating. So if you're curious to find out what the potential EPC is, please do contact us and we can quickly look up on our system and find out what that could potentially be. It's not a guarantee, but it'll give you a rough guideline of what your EPC would be, and it's based on sort of the age of the property, the EPCs of surrounding properties, stuff like that. So there's a EPC rating is one criteria, and the household income must be under £30,000 per year or under £20,000 once you take off housing costs. So that would be rent, mortgage, things like that. And you must either be an owner-occupier or rent from a landlord. And also, crucially, you need to be willing to have the work done to your property. So if you're eligible, but you don't really want that much done to your property, then there's probably not much point applying to this. You need to be willing to have some of this work done to your property. So willing to have sort of insulation or solar panels or things like that, which I'll talk about in a moment, because I'll now move on to what you can have installed. So you can have insulation. So this could be external wall insulation, internal wall insulation, cavity wall insulation as well, if your wall has cavities that aren't insulated, or perhaps maybe if they have very old insulation, insulation that may be sort of needing topping up, then that could be done as well. Roof insulation or underfloor, or combination of all of those. And insulation is a really good way of making your home feel warmer and also reduce your energy use. Air source heat pumps are potentially in there as well. So this uses electricity to transfer heat from one place to another. It's kind of like a reverse fridge. That's the sort of best analogy for it, and it heats water. So that's how you can heat your home using a heat pump, which draws that heat from the outside out of the air, and then can be used to heat your home. Double glazing. This reduces heat loss and can cut drafts. There's also solar PV to produce electricity for your home. There's heating controls. This can be really important, so you can better control the temperature of your home and use less energy, especially when you've got zones within your home. So if you have a house upstairs and downstairs, you can heat the downstairs during the day if you're downstairs and not heat the upstairs until it's getting close to bedtime, and so you can reduce your energy use there. And then there's also solar thermal as well, which could provide hot water that's heated by the sun. So how can you apply for funding? So you need to go to the Groundwork London website to register your interest. So the scheme that's being run, in order to apply, you need to go to Groundwork London, which is a partner organisation we're working with on this scheme, and register there. And after this, you'll receive a call to confirm your eligibility. And you can also call the helpline with the number on screen there, 0800 233 5655, to speak with the team if you've got any queries. Also, if you don't have access to the internet, you can call them and they can run through the application form with you. So don't worry if you don't have, or if you're talking to somebody else on their behalf, or you don't have internet access, you can call up the team and find out there. We've also got information on the Richmond Council website. So if you go to richmond.gov.uk/Green Homes Grant, you'll be able to find it. If you just type in Green Homes Grant into the search bit of the council website, it'll take you straight through to the relevant page. And it's got lots of supporting information there. So it's got information about how you apply. It's also got some frequently asked questions on there as well around sort of what happens with the scheme and things like that, and you can find out a bit more. So if you think you might be eligible, then please do register, because in terms of the information you need to supply to register, is some very basic information to start off with. You need your name, your address, your property tenure type, and that's it. And then more information will come through when the screening team call you and ask a bit more about your EPC rating and also your income eligibility as well. So I'll ask you some questions there about whether to find out whether you're eligible or not. But the actual sort of registration form is very, very simple. So I'd recommend, if you think you are eligible, it's worth applying, and then they can double check to make sure. So yeah, do go and register. So in terms of who's going to be doing the work, so Richmond has partnered with 12 other local authorities in West London to secure Green Homes Grant funding. So it's all across West London. There's also Newham, East London has come on board, and it's a consortium that we put together for this phase of funding, and it's led by Ealing Council. Previously, we've done Green Homes Grant before, and we delivered it ourselves. Funding eligibility kind of changed from government, and we needed to do something that was on a larger scale. And so we've gone in with this consortium, and an organisation called Warmworks are delivering the programme. Groundwork London, who I mentioned before, are handling all the applications and eligibility. So Ealing ran Green Homes Grant scheme in a previous sort of round of funding that we had, and they had a small consortium, and they were really, really successful, and we have really good links with them around sort of wider climate change work we're doing as Richmond Council. So we know the people at Ealing, we know the officers there, and they're really good, and they've delivered some really, really good things around Green Homes Grant. So we're really happy to go on board with them, and it's expanded, and because they've done so well, more people wanted to get on board with it and to access more funding and to deliver it via this consortium approach. So that's a really good thing. So I want to reassure everyone that while we're not sort of directly handling this, we're very confident about the way it's being set out, and we have we're a big part of sort of the management of the scheme overall. And then Warmworks, they're a really, really good organisation who have a really good background in retrofit and delivering sort of warmer homes type work. So they originally sort of originally based in Scotland, but they've expanded now, and they started delivering a lot of energy efficiency and retrofit work in conjunction with the Scottish Government, which is where they've kind of built their reputation. And since they've done that, they've expanded across the whole of the country, and they're doing a lot of work in London and South East now. And they're a really good organisation, and what they do is they kind of bring together their people, and also they've got a framework of contractors who will deliver. And so in terms of the people who will be sort of coming into your home to potentially do this work, they can be using reputable contractors that are part of a government approved scheme called Trustmark. So that's a requirement of the Green Homes Grant Scheme, is that all contractors have to be Trustmark registered, and that means that you can have a bit of confidence around customer service levels and agreements there, and also around sort of the quality of the work, and also about the sustainability of the work as well. And they have to go through certain different criteria to become Trustmark accredited. And Warmworks have also developed their own framework where they've put in their own requirements around that on top of Trustmark, because they want to be working with people that they can trust, that they know have the capacity to be able to deliver on this. And so they had an open field of sort of 60 contractors that they looked at, and they've narrowed this down to 11 contractors. So they've narrowed down the field that's potentially there down to a select band of people that they are confident and they know have the capacity to be able to deliver the work. So in terms of getting the work done and getting it done to the right standard, we've got a bit more confidence around that, and they're actually working with a few other organisations for them to improve their standards so they can come into the framework, so they can meet the criteria that Warmworks have set, because Warmworks have got a good reputation and they want to maintain that. So in terms of what happens next, so you fill in the application form, fill in the sort of like the referral, and then what happens from that. So Groundwork London will check that you're eligible. So they'll call you up and they'll check that you're eligible, and then they'll sort of do the process stuff that needs to go through to make sure that you're in the scheme. Then Warmworks will get in touch with you about arranging for a retrofit coordinator to visit and assess your property. So a retrofit coordinator is a specially trained person who can come into your home, have a look at it. They'll need to sort of look around a bit and probably sort of, if you've got an attic, look in your attic, check sort of like what insulation you've got in your floorboards and things like that, and they'll produce a whole house plan from that, which will have recommendations on how to improve the energy efficiency of your property. So that'll put forward a suite of different options that are available to you in terms of improvements that you can have to your home, and then they'll discuss that with you. So they'll have sort of a list of recommendations. These are the sorts of things that will improve the energy efficiency of your home and also lower the carbon footprint of your home. And then they'll discuss with you about what you would like to see in your home, and also the cost of it, because obviously we don't have unlimited funds for this, so it's keeping it around about that £10,000 limit. So I'll have a discussion with you around actually what are the priority things for you. Is it that the insulation you really want done? Is it solar panels that you really want done? Is it that you really want to be able to control the heating in your home? So actually, whatever happens, you really want that sort of heating control system in your home. And so discuss that with you, come to an agreement around what you want, and also that fits in terms of making sure there are actually sort of energy efficiency improvements. And then Warmworks will coordinate with you for the works to take place. So they'll go to the contractors that they've got, arrange with them for them to come into your home, liaise with you to arrange all that. So the good thing is you don't need to sort out the contractors to come to your home. You don't need to look around across different sort of builders and things like that to get it done. It's easily done. It's all sorted out for you. And then after the work has happened, there will be another assessment to check the new EPC rating. So that's an important part of the step, where we want to make sure that there have been improvements to your home and it's improved the EPC rating, because the aim is to try, if possible, to get your home to an EPC C rating. And the important thing here is you will have final say over what work happens in your property and when. So you are in control. It's other people doing lots of stuff around this for you, but you'll have that sort of final say on it. So what about if you rent? So that's not a problem at all. Richmond's Green Homes Grant Scheme is open to those who privately rent their home. So landlords aren't eligible for the full £10,000, but they can access up to £5,000 worth of funding for improvements. And so they'll be able to take advantage of this. Putting the wrong name there, it's Warmworks, and able to enter through this process. So if you rent, then please register, but let your landlord know. And if you're a landlord, register, but let your tenant know, because it needs to be a two-way process here. And there still needs to be checked on the household income and the EPC rating. The landlord's eligible for up to £5,000, but must pay at least a third of the costs of improvement. And there's some details on exactly how that works out on our website, where it sets out a table that shows sort of like how much improvement, and then sort of how much a landlord would have to pay. So if you've got some queries about that, there's lots of information on the website there. And if you're a social renter, then you will need to check with your housing provider. So some social housing providers are taking part in this, and they are able to do some of this work and take part in it. But before you apply, it would be best to check with them that they are taking part in it, because some are and some aren't. Some social housing providers have got their own schemes and approaches around improving the energy efficiency of the housing stock. So it's best to check first before you submit anything. And if you don't think you're eligible, but you do want to be more energy efficient, then you can still improve the energy efficiency of your home. So there's lots of different things you can do. So if you can afford to, you can look at retrofitting your home or installing some of the measures we've mentioned here, like insulation, solar panels, things like that. And some cheaper measures that you can do, which are a bit more affordable, are switching out your existing lights for LEDs, which are much lower energy. And you'll see it if you've got sort of normal bulbs in your ceilings and in lamps and things like that, then switching to LEDs, you'll see a marked difference in your energy bills almost immediately, and it's a really good return on investment. Smart heating controls can be very expensive, but they can also be very reasonable as well. And again, the payback on those can be sort of like over the course of 2 years, just because it really does improve the efficiency and the way you use energy. And also thermostatic radiator valves, so where you can change the temperature on the individual radiators. So for example, you can turn it down bedrooms during the day, turn it up just before you go to bed, so you can sort of warm up the room a little bit. And there's other even more affordable things you can do as well, like thermal curtains, smart energy meters, which are being provided by energy companies and are generally free to install. Draft excluders, radiator reflectors as well can help cut down your energy use as well. And like I said, they're generally quite affordable. And if you want to find out some more information, there are some other resources you can go to. So there's Southwest London Energy Advice Partnership, and so there's the website on there, and we'll circulate that as well, circulate a link to you in the chat. And they provide impartial energy advice, and they arrange they either come to your home, they'll talk to you on the phone, and they'll give you some advice around energy efficiency, and also might be able to help you with some sort of small level installation as well. And there's the Richmond Winter Warmth Scheme as well, which is run by a group called Thinking Works, and they provide energy advice view and sort of assessments of energy efficiency of your home, and can help with small improvements like LEDs and draft excluders and things like that to improve the energy efficiency of your home. So next steps, register with Groundwork, speak to the screening team to progress your application. If you can't take part in the scheme, if you're not eligible, then please do tell other people who think might be able to take part, might be interested in this. We want as many people to access this as possible. We've got the funding, we want to be able to use it and to deliver energy efficiency for people in the borough. So please do spread the word, even if you're not eligible. And also, if not eligible, think about the other things you can do in your home. So if you want to find out any more, please do ask questions, or you can go to richmond.gov.uk/Green Homes Grant, and you can find out even more there. And that's also the number on the screen for the screening team for Groundwork. Thank you very much, and that's it from me.
Thanks, Andrew. Really informative, and we've put a few links so far into the chat if you can see them, but we'll move on to our Q&A section now. So I can see that there's been some questions put into the chat already, so I'll pick up on those first. That's great, thank you. If you have any questions that you want to ask, then please do pop them in the chat, or unmute yourself and ask away, or use the raise hand function that you can see on the reactions button on Zoom, and I will ask you to put your question to us, and I'll pick up on some of the ones that were submitted at the registration stage as well. And don't worry if we don't get to cover every question today. We've got about half an hour, so we'll squeeze as many in as we can, but we will send information around to everyone that registered for this event on email afterwards, with all the links and all the answers to your questions as well. So The first one that I can see that's been put in the chat is a really good one about finances. So, Andrew, this is a question about the eligibility point about earning under £30,000 a year. So for what financial year does the less than £30,000 criteria apply?
It's generally for the sort of previous 12 months, roughly. As I understand it, there's a little bit of flexibility. So if there's previous financial year or just 12 months prior, that's generally what it applies to.
Great, thank you. The next question that we have is about EPC rating. So the question in the chat is, I looked for the EPC on the website. It wasn't there for my flat. I was told I had to pay to get an assessor. Is this true? So I know you touched on it at the beginning of the presentation, but just talking about how people can find their EPC, but also what happens if people don't have an EPC and how we will support them through that in this scheme.
Yeah, so you don't need an EPC to apply. So what happens is that if you have an EPC, then it helps because it establishes that eligibility. And if you don't, then what we can do is we can try and help by finding the modelled EPC. And also, ultimately, when you go through the process and they do when Groundwork come out and do that whole house plan assessment, the Retrofit Coordinator comes out, they'll be able to establish the EPC rating. And so then you'll know whether you're eligible or not, because you'll have an expert who's come out, assessed it. And if it comes out as a C rating, then you wouldn't be eligible, but the bonus is that you do have a more energy efficient home, and that's been confirmed. And so that is a good thing. But no, you don't have to pay to get an assessor to come out prior to this. It'll be covered within it.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so just to stress, there's no cost and you don't need to pay for an assessor.
No.
Perfect, thank you. Just jumping down to another question in the chat that's related to this from Dan, thank you. If you have a band D property, do you only receive work to bring it up to a band C? This might be less work than that needed to bring up from a band F, say.
We'll try and improve it as much as we can, but within sort of the £10,000 rough envelope that we have to work with. So if you've got a band D, then quite often a lot of the quick wins, the easy things will have been done. So it might be that there's a few more things that are trickier. So it might be that it's some of the more expensive things that need to be taken up to from that D to a C. But it does depend on the property. I will stress that every property is different. And so it really does depend on the individual property and what the needs are around that in terms of the energy efficiency things. So yeah, it really does depend on it, but sort of everyone's sort of eligible, and the work will be suggested and it'll be talked through with you as well, so you can decide actually these are the things that I think are really important to my home, and it's going to improve the energy efficiency of the home. Then that's what you can have done.
Great. And tied to that, making sure that the works that are done are the most energy efficient as possible, and doing that whole house assessment. We've had a question about heat pump installation and how that won't be the most efficient for poor EPCs.
Yes.
So presumably that wouldn't be funded without, if other works are needed other than a heat pump to make it the most energy efficient.
Yeah, so heat pumps work in a slightly different way to gas boilers. So they work at a slightly lower temperature. So it's more around constant heats going around rather than what happens with gas boilers, where you can turn on a lot of heat very quickly. It's kind of, it heats in a slightly different way. And so if your property is not very energy efficient, then it's actually not a very good way of heating your home. So if you've got solid brick walls and there's no insulation on it, then a lot of that heat is going to leak out. It's going to be quite difficult to maintain your property at a comfortable level. And so actually it could be that you end up with increased energy bills, because if it's not insulated, if it's not an energy efficient home, then heat pumps aren't terribly suitable. So it would be around looking at the whole thing and improving the energy efficiency first before putting in a heat pump. So we wouldn't be suggesting, and Groundwork wouldn't be trying to install a heat pump if it wasn't already a fairly efficient property. There wasn't already some sort of insulation, and you'd be able to maintain that temperature without your energy bills going up. So yeah, it's what's called a fabric first approach, where you look at the fabric of the building and you assess that, and then you decide on the energy efficiency improvements that need to be done there.
Perfect. Thank you. Question from Susan in the chat. Are PA housing taking part in this scheme?
That I'm not sure about. I'd have to go and check and come back to you, Susan, on that. I know there's a few different housing associations have said that they were interested in taking part. But yeah, I'd have to check exactly which ones have expressed interest.
We can double check that and do it and include it in the follow-up. Yeah. Great. Question from Maria. We are a group of 10 flats. Are there any schemes for such groups in the pipeline? So around large groups of flats.
Maria, if you want to come off mute and just explain sort of the situation, because I think I probably need a bit more context.
Maria, if you're there, I'm happy to put your question to Andrew.
Hi.
Hi, Maria.
You can hear me. You can hear me. Well, we're just a group of 10 flats in Hampton Hill, and they're built in 1965 or something. I don't know what else I can tell you. My thinking was, is there any schemes that actually would be better for a group of 10 flats?
Are you social housing, or is it private?
It's private.
Okay. At the moment, there's no schemes for private blocks. And one of the issues around sort of Green Homes Grant is the eligibility criteria. So you would all need to be under the income threshold, and all the properties would need to be under in the sort of DEFG to be eligible.
I see. Yes.
So that is going to be quite challenging. That everyone needs to be on that lower income, and everybody needs to be at that lower level of the energy efficiency to be eligible for Green Homes Grant. Unfortunately, for private blocks, there's not anything in the scheme from the government. It is one of the challenges, one of the wider challenges around retrofit and mass retrofit that's needed to tackle the climate emergency. Is how do you get blocks like yourselves, blocks like the one that I live in and where I am right now.
Sure.
It's sort of mix of private rented owner occupiers. It's a private block. How do you access the financing of it? How do you arrange for everyone to agree on what's going to happen? It's all a big challenge that's being thought about at a national and a regional level, but there's no kind of answers and tools in terms of applying it at a local level at the moment, unfortunately. But it is something that I do know that people are working on, are thinking about, and are trying to explore, because it's been identified as a really big challenge. So just for context, around about half of the sort of, carbon emissions from the borough, from Richmond, are from domestic heating and electricity use. So it's a really big issue in terms of trying to reduce our carbon emissions overall as a borough. And of course, retrofit means energy efficiency, which means lower energy bills as well.
Sure. Thanks, Andrew. That's great. Thanks for.
No problem at all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Maria. And there was a question about flats that was submitted at the registration stage, so just double checking that flats that are at the top of a house can be, are eligible in this scheme, aren't they? Flats as well.
Yeah, potentially. It does depend on your tenure exactly, sort of in terms of your leasehold status and sort of who has the access to, say, the roof or the floors or stuff like that. So, like I said, every property is different. So it might be that you can have something done, but you can't necessarily have lots of things done, because it really does depend on that individual situation. It's one of the things in the UK, and especially in London, is lots of different properties have lots of different mixes of kind of leasehold status and exactly what you can access and what you can do with a property and things like that. So it just needs to be assessed sort of like case by case basis, really. But I'd say if you think you're eligible, apply, and then once the retrofit coordinator comes out and has a look at it, then they can look at actually what are the things that need to be done and what can you do in terms of the leasehold status and things like that.
Perfect, thank you. Question from Alison in the chat around solar. So can both solar PV and solar thermal be installed, or is it either or?
It depends on the size of your roof. If you've got a really big roof, you might be able to do both. If you haven't got a big roof, then it will probably be either or. Yeah, you can have both on there. And I have seen sort of walking around people with both on there, but it is rare and tends to be one or the other.
So can I just ask,
Yeah.
which is the best one if you have to have either or?
Again, it does depend on what you're aiming to do and what the property is like. So solar PV will provide electricity, which means it reduces your electricity bills, and you're not drawing from the grid, and it gives you sort of that energy independence, or partial anyway. And that's a real positive. Solar thermal provides hot water. Generally, solar thermal is not quite enough to heat your home because you don't quite get the volume going through there, but it's a good way of getting at least some of your requirements of hot water and improving your energy efficiency. So you don't need to burn as much gas if you've still got if you have a gas boiler, or if you've got a heat pump, it reduces the strain on the demand on the heat pump as well, because you've got another source of hot water coming into the building. So it really does depend. And again, that's something that a retrofit coordinator will be able to have a look at and be able to tell you, sort of like, well, actually for this property, solar PV is probably better, or if solar thermal is better. Solar PV is much more common than solar thermal.
Great. Thanks, Alison and Andrew. Tied to that, in case this is beneficial for anyone on the call, about Solar Together scheme. Someone asked, we are having solar panels installed under the Solar Together scheme. Can we still apply for funding for a heat pump and insulation?
Yes, if you meet the eligibility criteria, then yes, you can. There's nothing to stop you applying for Solar Together. So for background information, because lots of people probably won't be aware, but Solar Together is a group buying scheme that's being offered. It's run by the Greater London Authority, it's the Mayor of London, and it's an opportunity for residents to come together and access solar power, solar panels and battery and things like that. And it's group buying, so you get a discount on it because there's a volume of work, and so the contractor can bid in for it and offer a better price for it, basically. So if you apply for that, but you're also eligible for Green Homes Grant, then you can have that done as well, and you'll have, yes, a very efficient home with solar panels on top.
Thanks, Andrew. And if anyone is interested in Solar Together, you have to apply before the 15th of March, is that right? Yes. I'm just going to put a link in the chat now to our website. Yeah, great, thank you. Okay, question from Corinne in the chat. I'm a leaseholder in a housing association block of flats. They will not approve you to do work on the outside, but I understand I can have work done on the inside. Can you please advise?
Yes, you can have work done on the inside. Again, it's best to talk to the house, to the freeholder of the blocks of the housing association, to talk to them about what exactly you can and can't do, and what's in your, and checking your agreement that you've got there. Because it could be that you can have some work done that would make improvements. So, for example, like heating controls, it might be that you can change your front door. It might be that you can have some internal insulation done in there. It's worth exploring. It's worth applying, and then finding out actually what you can and can't do. But there probably are going to be some restrictions on what you can do and what you can install.
Can I just speak then? So I did ask the housing association people. The person I spoke to wasn't clear. She didn't really know, but she said, I think it's as long as it's not structural, you can have it done.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. That does make sense.
Okay. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Corinne. A question from Dan, which is a good one, about the deadline. So how much of the scheme has already been allocated if 120 schemes are planned? And is there a time limit or a deadline?
So we've got kind of two phases of funding. So we've got phase 2, because we've already run one phase, which we're just kind of finishing off. Which has been running for around about a year. And we're just kind of finishing off the installations for that now. And then we've got phase 2, which is now, phase 3, which is from April. So the deadline for phase 2 is the end of March. We're trying to get as many people in as possible, so you've got the rest of the month to apply, and that's just for sort of registering interest, and it's not about sort of you need to have like the work done by then. It's just about registering interest and entering into that, and that's by the end of March. But if you want to have a bit more think about it, don't worry, there still is phase 3 that's open, so you can enter the scheme there as well. And at the moment we've had around about 30 people come into the scheme, so we've got around about 30 registration. Not all of them will necessarily be eligible, and not all of them will necessarily go on with the work, because sometimes you decide actually that's not for me, or circumstances change or whatever. So there's always a few people that sort of drop out and don't take it forward. So there's still plenty of opportunity. I mean, everybody on this call could apply, and if everyone's eligible, everyone will be able to take part in this. And so we still have plenty of space on there. That's why we're doing this sort of stuff, because we want more people to take part in it. We don't want to sort of have the hand funding back to government when it's been granted to us. So yeah, if you can get your application in before the end of March, that'll be absolutely brilliant. But if you can't, then don't worry, there's still another phase that you can do. And basically this scheme is open until this time next year. So we've managed to secure funding for a much longer time period than previously, where initially it was just for sort of 6 months or so. And that's not a lot of time to do this sort of work and to do building work on people's homes and everything like that. And the government sort of recognised that and have extended the funding time period.
Perfect. Thanks, Andrew. I hope that answers your question, Dan. Thank you. So Alexander has put into the chat, thank you for your presentation. Could you just please confirm the eligibility again? If it is a tenanted property, privately rented, what are the criteria around that? Is the 30k threshold prior to housing costs net, or is it gross income? And does the 30k include benefits too, or are they discounted from the calculation? So a bit about that part of the eligibility, if you wouldn't mind, Andrew.
So the 30k prior to housing costs, I think that is, I think it's net, but I can't remember right now. So I'll need to go in and check that actually and send that through, just double check, because it's completely gone from my mind whether it's net or gross. So apologies for that. But the 30k again, so on the benefits, when they're doing the sort of income assessment, they'll be asking about sort of whether you do receive benefits, because for eligibility, if you're eligible for certain benefits, it means that basically you're within a threshold, and therefore you'll be eligible for the Green Homes Grant Scheme. So they will ask about benefits, and it could be that sort of there's your housing costs as well, sort of talking about some of your housing costs as well, and being clear about that, because it might be that will take you under the £20,000 a year threshold, so then you'll be eligible, because it's £30,000 overall income for the household, or it's £20,000 once you take away the housing costs. So yeah, but it's worth applying if you think you're around about the area, because then you can speak to the team, they can go through it with you, and they can do that assessment about whether you're eligible or not, and it'll just be a quick phone call with you to do that. So hopefully you'll be eligible and be able to have some work done. And then in terms of the wider eligibility around the EPC rating, just to clarify, is for D, E, F and G, so that's the lowest energy efficiency ratings.
Great, thanks, Andrew. Alexander, does that answer your question? Just to check. I'll take the silence as a yes. Yeah, feel free to pop in the chat, Alexander, if you have any other questions about eligibility, we can pick up on that. Okay, thank you. So,
sorry, Amy.
Yes,
Dad's
hello.
question, he couldn't write it in the chat. He wanted to know that, does the fact that he's registered for this event and been on this Zoom call mean that he's registered with, he's put Groundworks to get on the system?
Yeah, to get on the
scheme.
Greenwork system.
Has he got to do something different, or does
yeah, he will still need to register on the Groundwork website, or give them a ring. So we've put a link in the chat, and we can. It's a very simple form. So it's literally just sort of name, address, whether the property tenure type, and that's about it really in terms of registering. It's it's not that much information, and they'll confirm that. They'll give you a ring then to confirm some of the information, confirm your eligibility, sort of stuff.
Or if you can't see the chat, just to say there is a phone number as well that you can ring, and they'll help you on the phone. So I can read that out, or we'll put it in the chat as well. But also, sorry, go on.
I've got that phone number.
Oh, great.
You're not gonna like this. I've phoned them 5 times so far, and although they answer you sometimes, they never phone back.
Okay.
Is the link that you're referring? Sorry, Amy. Is the link that you're referring to the richmond.gov.uk news/press?
Yes. So if you head to that one, that'll take you to our webpage that has got all the information on about the Green Homes Grant scheme. And then if you scroll to the bottom, it'll say how to apply, and then there's a link to Groundwork London's website. I can also put the direct link to Groundwork London into the chat now if you just want to go straight there. So that's at the bottom of the chat now, so that's there for you. But yeah, sorry to hear you haven't been having luck with the phone call. We can feed that back probably. Can't we, Andrew?
I'll feed that back to them and sort of ask them about what's going on there, because that's not the experience we want for our residents.
No, absolutely.
On this. So thank you for sharing that, because I'll follow that.
It's just that I'm 74. I'm not great with a computer. I'm totally illiterate really, but I have a smartphone, and I actually went to Richmond today to be able to go into the walk-in event, because that's what they called it. They didn't say it was online. They said it was a walk-in event. So I'm one of probably quite a few people of 74 that don't use a computer necessarily, and that might have wanted to go to this event. And because they read on the newsprint that you sent us all by email, it said it was a walk-in event. When I went down to Richmond and asked them where the walk-in event was, they couldn't tell me. No, it's online. So, you know, that little bit of information, someone should have put in the newsletter.
Yes, I did check for Dad as well, and it didn't say it was virtual at any point.
It just said it was an event.
Thanks for letting us know, because we'll make sure that's clearer. Also, there's letters coming out to people who are, in terms of sort of that wider communication around letting people know about it. So obviously we're doing this event. We're also sending out letters to people who we sort of think might be eligible, just to tell them that, you know, about the scheme. So people will get letters through the door as well, and some of you may well get them through the door imminently. They're going out very, very soon.
Will we be able to access this chat when this call has closed?
Yes.
I don't know. I'm asking.
You're recording it for that reason, aren't you?
Yeah, we're recording it. I'm not sure if you'll be able to access the chat, but
we don't need a copy of the video. Just whether I can keep this link, because I don't want to click on it now and lose you.
I can send it directly now to your email address,
Tom.
But we'll send it round to everyone as well after this session. So we'll send it round on email after this. It might be tomorrow morning, but we'll send it round to everyone. Yeah, making sure all the links, all the information, everything is in there for you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Right,
no problem at all.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we said lots of people, but no faces.
I can see that Karen has asked about Green Doctors. So Green Doctors is part of the Groundwork London. So it's probably Groundwork London. They've got kind of different project bits that they do, because they Groundwork London actually do really, really good work across all sorts of sort of climate and sustainability related things. They're a really good charity actually, and they do lots of different work. So Green Doctors is they're part of it that does lots of stuff around energy efficiency. So if you get a call from Green Doctors, that's probably that probably is the Groundwork London people calling you back.
Okay, thank you. So
Anne has got her hand up.
Oh, sorry. Yes, perfect. Hi, Anne.
Unmute.
If you can unmute.
Mute. Right.
There we are.
Yes, I applied last year and sent all my documentation in, and never heard anything else.
Okay.
Although I had a chat with someone at the council, I understand now we send it direct to Groundwork, so that's a different, obviously everything will have to go there.
Yes.
At what point do we need to provide all our paperwork? Is it after we've applied?
Yes, so you register first, and then they'll give you a ring to talk to you about your eligibility, and then you might need to send some stuff through, or they'll kind of assess stuff on the phone then. It could be that if you're accessing certain benefits, then actually you don't need to send anything in, because that can be verified. And so that's actually sort of a fairly straightforward process. If you need to double check some other things, then it might be that actually you need to sort of send some things in, probably via email or via sort of like document sending things. But yeah, if you register first, then they'll get in contact with you about what you need to provide in terms of extra information.
Okay, right. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Anne. A comment from Janet in the chat, so just picking up on this about other ways that people can be energy efficient in their homes, and just some tips on there. So Janet said, we are freeholders and not low income. We are about to get our windows replaced. Is there a reliable website or service that can provide advice about further ways to be energy efficient? We've got a few links on that I can put into the chat now, but Andrew, do you want to just talk about other ways that people can make?
Yeah, there's, I mean, we can't recommend sort of individual companies to do this sort of stuff really, because that's not really sort of our place as the council. But there's different things that you can look for in terms of retrofit. One of the things, if you want to do sort of like a full energy efficiency, actually getting a retrofit coordinator to have a look at your home would be a really good way of doing it. And so I'd recommend sort of searching for retrofit coordinators in your area. If you go to, I think if you go to the Trustmark website, then you'll be able to find retrofit coordinators locally who would then be able to come out and do that assessment, and you'd need to pay for that service. But it's the sort of thing where it's a really useful way to start thinking about actually what's the route and what do you need to do to make your home more energy efficient, and do it in a sort of coordinated way where you're not kind of doing bits and pieces. You can see you're getting windows replaced. That's a really good start. That can make an impact. If you're going from single glazing to double glazing, that has a big impact on your energy efficiency. If you're changing from older double glazing to newer double glazing, they actually don't make that much of an impact, and the return on investment is 300 years or something like that, because the price and the differential is not actually that big, though it's still good to have. But lots of people like having new windows because it feels a lot better, a lot more efficient, and a lot warmer for people. Though the energy efficiency between sort of like old double glazing and new double glazing is not as big as you might think it is. But yeah, I'd recommend doing that, and then having a look around at other retrofit companies that exist if you're willing to look into that. There's one in what are they called? It's linked to Retrofit Works. Retrofit Works do retrofit stuff, and they were our previous partner for the previous phase, and they've also got sort of an arm that does able to pay retrofits for people that aren't eligible for this sort of scheme. So if you have a look for that, then you'll be able to find out a bit more information there.
Thanks, Andrew. And just to say that one of the links that we've put into the chat, the simple energy advice link, also takes you to Trustmark that Andrew mentioned, so you can get to it through there as well. And again, we'll share all of these links with everyone afterwards so that you'll have it. Susan, I wondered whether you wanted to mention the Witton Community Centre while we're on here, just to quickly chat about that before the end.
Yes, I would. I'm from SW Leap, and you've put our link up, which is great. So we offer free home energy visits to anybody in Richmond Borough, and we will do an audit on your property. And we also will be at Witton Community Centre. We're there the last Friday of every month. So if you'd like to pop along and see us, we're there between 10 and 12:30.
Thanks, Susan. It's just a bit quicker, but yeah,
I think we're very happy if you'd like to come along as well and be there with us.
Thanks, Susan. That's great.
Did you get that?
Yes, yeah, bits and most of it, yeah. So I'll just pop into the chat again. So it's the SW Leap Cafe at Witton Community Centre on Friday, the 25th of March, if people want to, and that's between 10 and 12, was it?
Yeah,
yeah, perfect.
That's right. Yeah.
Thanks, Susan. I'll put that into the chat.
So
Okay.
if you have any sort of queries, please do go along to that, because Susan and her team are doing like really, really fantastic work. And so really glad you're on the call, and to hear from you, Susan.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thanks,
very much.
Susan.
Thanks very much for doing it.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. If anyone else has any other questions for us, if you want to put them quickly into the meeting chat now, or we will send around an email to everyone with all of this information, all the links in. So please feel free, reply to that email, give send us a message at any time if you've got any questions, and do call the Groundwork number to start applying. And I suppose the message is, if you think you're eligible, and you want to go for it, apply. Sorry, a bit cringy, but yeah, that we want as many people to do it as possible. So I hope you found this useful. Have a great rest of your evening. Thanks so much, Andrew, for the presentation and for going through that with us, and thank you everyone again for joining. Hope to see you soon.